What up, dorks? It is the Turtle Dork back again with a new review. This week I have for you Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This is the first anthology movie that Star Wars is attempting to make outside of the traditional episodes, the Skywalker saga. So Lucasfilms and Disney really wanted to try to use this movie as an experiment to see if the fans would kind of take to a story outside of the traditional saga. I have to say that they really succeeded in creating a film that really fleshes out the original movie, Episode 4, A New Hope. Now, what I love about this film is the fact that it was able to create this world, to create new characters that we could follow, that we could really invest into, but still tie itself to the original trilogy and not really feel hamstrung by it. And for me, I thought they did that seamlessly. I thought they were really able to kind of tell their own story, but drop these little nuggets and little hints that tie it perfectly into the original trilogy. So let's go ahead and talk about Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna. I thought this character had a really compelling arc in the film. There's a scene in the beginning of this film with Diego Luna when he's talking to an informant where he's trying to get information about what the Empire is building. When he's pinned in and he has to take out a few stormtroopers, and then ultimately he has to take out his own informant to basically protect himself and his interest, he has to do what he has to do. When we get to the planet of Jeddah and the city of Jeddah, I love that whole sequence. Gareth Edwards does a very good job of creating this wartime feel, and I'll get into a little bit more of that in my review. We talk about a lot of the battles, but Disney has always said that they wanted this film to feel like a war film, and throughout this film you definitely get that feeling of this being a wartime film. And in this particular sequence in Jeddah, when they're walking through the cities, it definitely feels like one of these third world countries that's being occupied by either ISIS or Al Qaeda. It has that very grounded, real gritty wartime feel to it. And that's something that I've never seen in a Star Wars movie. And this sequence, and even the battle in Jeddah, the city of Jeddah, is a good representation of that. You could have taken that scene out and dropped the aesthetic of that scene into a film like Black Hawk Down, and you would have thought that it fit right into a movie like that. I thought it was brilliant the way they shot a lot of these sequences, and that's just a testament to the filmmakers and to Disney and Lucasfilms for being able to capture the essence of that style of filmmaking. So also in the city of Jeddah, we're introduced to two other characters, which for me ultimately were some of my two favorite characters. That would be Chirrut Imwe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, played magnificently by Donnie Yen. And then we have Baze Malbus, played by Wen Jeong. These two characters I thought were brilliant, and I love their chemistry together, and you really feel their friendship throughout this film. Chirrut Imwe he feels like this Zen type character. He's a character that believes in the Force. He's not a Jedi, but he believes in the power of the Force, and he has this great mantra that he says throughout the film, where I am with the Force and the Force is with me. That's going to be a mantra that I think a lot of people are going to be chanting for years to come, and it really shows you the dedication and his belief in what the Jedi represent. And I love his back and forth with Baze Malbus, because Baze Malbus is almost like a non-believer, and he's always kind of ribbing him about this whole thing about the Jedi and the Force, and almost kind of like Han Solo in the original trilogy, where he doesn't believe a lot of that mumbo jumbo nonsense. And there's a great arc at the end of the movie with these two characters that I thought was probably one of my favorite moments in the film. We're also introduced to another character named Bodhi. Now, he is an Imperial pilot that is sent by Galen Erso to inform Saul Guerrero about the weapon that they are building. Now let's get into some of the characters on the other side with the Empire. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Mendelsohn as Director Krennic. This character caught me a little off guard. I thought this character was going to pose a real threat to the rebellion, and he does to a degree, but ultimately he feels more like a flunky to the Emperor and to Darth Vader and to Tarkin. It's also no surprise that Darth Vader was also in this film. Now, he's not in this movie a lot, but his introduction scene in this movie I thought was pretty badass and pretty interesting. We really get introduced to him when Krennic comes to visit him at his castle, and you see him. He's not in his classic costume that we're known to seeing him in, but he's in like this vat of liquid, and it's so cool because it's the first time we've actually got to see Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, outside of the suit. Now you don't get a full frontal of him outside of the Darth Vader costume, but it's just interesting just to see what he has to do to kind of keep himself alive and keep himself going. And I just thought it just added a different dimension to that character that we've never seen before. Now his scene with Krennic, we know Darth Vader. We've seen him in the original trilogy, but I have to tell you that these scenes with Krennic and then another scene towards the end of the movie, you really feel the villainy and the intimidation of Darth Vader in these scenes. It's also the way Ben Mendelsohn plays that scene against Darth Vader to really sell it, of how menacing and evil and intimidating Darth Vader as a character is. Some of the other things that I've really enjoyed in this movie, and I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about having this movie feel like a war movie. When we get to the third act on Scarif, and they have to come up with the scheme to go ahead and steal the Death Star plans, the battle on Scarif, I have to say, it feels like it's pulled straight out of a World War II movie. Now, it has to be said that the cinematographer for this film was also the cinematographer on Zero Dark 30. I know they've pulled some people from Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down, and throughout this film, you can feel their fingerprints all over this film, especially in a lot of these battle scenes. And what I liked about this film is that it pulls no punches with the grittiness of war and the casualties of war and people getting killed and people dying. This movie gets pretty brutal. I mean, with the whole idea of a lot of these firefights and boots on the ground and a lot of these battles, I was surprised that Disney was that brave to really do a movie in this style. This feels like the first Star Wars movie that was kind of made for adults. So with a war film, you also have to have casualties of war, and to see the sacrifice of our of kind of like our band of brothers, our Rogue One. Everyone in this movie basically sacrifices their life for the greater good of getting these plans back to the rebellion. Realizing the sacrifice that everybody had to make for the greater good, it was really impactful. We get this great hallway scene with Darth Vader when you see the red lightsaber come out and he is going through people. I mean, he's force choking people, he's blocking laser blasters, he's like slicing people away with the lightsaber, he's mowing through people, and this was pretty cool to see. We've never really seen Darth Vader do anything kind of badass on screen. When we've seen him on screen, he had that one lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that emotional arc and battle that he had with his son Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi that I really enjoyed. But we've never really got to see him just kind of be a badass, and I think the filmmakers knew that, and they definitely wanted to kind of put that on display, and I felt they did that in a great way without really forcing it. And so they finally get the plans to Princess Leia, and we get a quick shot of a young Princess Leia that we see at the beginning of episode 4. Again, another criticism that I saw a lot of people had on social media. Again, I didn't really get. Again, I'm just going to chalk it up to the fact that I have bad eyes. There you go. But I thought it was cool to kind of see her, and that really leads directly, literally minutes, seconds, you could say, right into episode 4. Now, to quickly kind of get into a few of my criticisms that I had of the film. From the beginning, I would have to say that this movie could have definitely benefited from a crawl text. I know there was a lot of talk about whether or not there would be a crawl text in this film. It looks like Disney decided not to go with the crawl text. I feel like this movie could have benefited from having a crawl text, especially for a lot of casual fans of Star Wars and just movie fans, casual movie fans in general, who may not know a lot about the original trilogy, or who may never have seen a Star Wars movie. Getting back to some of the character moments, I would have liked to have seen a scene between Jyn Erso and Mads Mikkelsen before he died on the planet of Edu, when they got attacked on Edu. We did get a moment when she got to see the hologram of her father, and I thought that Felicity Jones played opposite that scene very well. Just her emotion and her response to seeing her father. But I would have liked to have seen a scene between her and Mads Mikkelsen. I don't know where you could have placed it, but she has a pretty good scene with Saul Guerrero, who you could say was also a father figure to her, because he pretty much raised her until she was about 16 or so. But there was a good moment between her and Forrest Whitaker when she basically confronts him about leaving her, and he explains why he had to do that. And I would have liked to have seen a scene like that between her and her father. Unfortunately, we don't get that. And in his dying moments, he tells Jyn that, there's so much that I want to tell you. And I just feel like that may have been a missed opportunity to be able to have those moments, especially with two actors like that. And Mads Mikkelsen is so good. I think if we would have had a moment between the two of them, that could have added a lot more depth to her character and to her journey and her motivation moving forward. Again, I don't know where you could have placed that scene in the structure of how this movie was going, but looking back, I just felt like I would have liked to have seen something with the two of them. I also would have liked to see some character development a little more with some of our with some of our characters that were on this mission. I enjoyed the moments and the beats that we got with them, but I just felt like, to a degree, they were slightly underdeveloped. I will give credit to the actors for really bringing something to these characters, so that towards the end of the film, we still feel invested, especially when it comes to their death. We feel invested, and I give credit to the actors for that. But I feel like maybe the screenplay didn't give these characters moments in kind of like the first and second acts to really build upon who these characters were and the dynamic between these characters. Maybe because we're always in a forward movement in this movie, everything really does feel plot driven, so it's like we really don't have time to kind of sit back and breathe with these characters to kind of have those moments. But again, we have to give credit to the actors, because for me, towards the end of the film, I still bought into and was invested in into these characters, especially in their final moments. But looking back, I think we really could have. I think it really would have been a little more impactful if we got some more of those quieter moments with a lot of these kind of secondary characters. But yeah, guys, those were my overall thoughts of the film. So I'm gonna go ahead and change my rating. I'm not gonna do out of 10. I'm gonna do out of 100, because I kind of want to get a little more as far as like my scale of what I thought about these films. So out of 100, I think I would give this movie. I would give this movie a solid B plus. So I'm gonna go 89 out of 100. I absolutely enjoyed my experience of watching this movie. Again, I feel like it fleshes out episode 4, A New Hope. I don't feel like they've kind of forced anything into this movie. This movie does do fan service, but ultimately I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of people feel like fan service is a bad word. It just all depends on the execution of it and how you use it. Earlier this year we got a film, Ghostbusters, which was pretty much all fan service and was done terribly, in my opinion. This movie does fan service, I thought, in a very good way, and that fit the story. So a lot of people may have criticisms of that. I don't. I thought the fan service worked brilliantly, and I thought that you also needed that fan service, because this movie, when it takes place, what it leads into, you have to have those moments with characters that we've seen before. So I don't feel that there was an issue with that. But yeah, guys, so go ahead and let me know what you think. Go ahead, rate, comment, like, subscribe, and go ahead and check out my other dorks at Sidewalk Siren, at Mouth Dork, and at The Disco Dork. And for me, I am the Turtle Dork, and with that, I'm out.